Today it's been exactly 100 days since I set up my first ever saltwater aquarium. A lot of you guys have been asking for an update and I apologize for taking a little bit longer with it. It just hasn't been a completely smooth journey. A lot of things have happened in the past 100 days. Today I'm going to share everything with you, so let's get started. Okay, so let's just start from the very beginning. I've been keeping freshwater tanks only my entire life, and for the past 8 years or so that has been mainly planted tanks. I absolutely love planted tanks and I don't think I'll ever get bored with them, but I did feel like I needed a new challenge. So like many others, I'd also been thinking about saltwater, but it just seemed very complicated, difficult and expensive, so I didn't go for it. But then 1 or 2 years ago I discovered macroalgae. On Instagram I started seeing beautiful saltwater macroalgae tanks that literally look like freshwater aquascapes. So obviously I was curious to know more about this new trend and I started to do some research. Then I quickly found out that for macroalgae you don't necessarily need blue light, you don't really need a protein skimmer, and overall it kind of looked like a much easier way of keeping a saltwater aquarium. So now I was excited to give it a try. I still had an empty 30cm cube lying around, as well as a light and an external canister filter. The filter has a built-in heater as well, so basically that was all the equipment sorted. So the next step was to start working on the hardscape. I started with a thin layer of sand, then made a very simple hardscape with black lava rock. The lava rock isn't something you would normally see in a saltwater tank, but since it's porous and inert, I thought it would work just fine. I also glued all the rocks together with super glue to make sure nothing could collapse in the future. After that I filled it up with reverse osmosis water and added in the salt. And this was the only time I added salt directly into the tank. After this I always made sure to prepare salt water in advance. So that was basically just a quick recap of the first video I made of this aquarium. Just kind of going over the background story and why I wanted to set up a saltwater aquarium and also the setup. And then a few weeks later, the first macroalgae arrived, so that's when I made another video. Now it's still very difficult to find macroalgae here in the Netherlands, so I was very happy when actually one of my subscribers reached out to me and told me about his macroalgae collection. And he was kind enough to send me 7 different types of macroalgae. So we got Crypt prolifera, a nice bright green algae with very long leaves. We got a beautiful red algae called Rhodymania. And we got Crypt taxifolia, a green macroalgae that kind of looks like a feather. Then we got a few other types as well. So I added them all into the aquarium and that was the real beginning of my saltwater challenge. Would I be able to keep these macroalgae alive and actually get them to start growing? And that was basically the last thing you guys saw of this aquarium, because since then it's been very quiet. So let's talk about what happened after that. I think for the first month everything went quite alright. I saw some new growth on some of the macroalgae and that made me feel like this tank was going in the right direction. I did have some issues with like a brown and red algae coat, which started with just a few spots here and there, but it would spread pretty quickly. It was easy to clean though, so every week I would just remove it as much as possible and do a water change. After about a month I went to visit one of my favorite stores that has both salt and fresh water, so I decided to buy a little algae cleanup crew, consisting of 3 different types of snails. So I got 2 droge snails, these are very good against algae on rocks and on the glass. I also got 2 Nasarius snails, these really dig into the sand so they will keep that clean. And lastly I got 2 Monet cowries, and they are very good against diatoms and hair algae. And I remember that after I got those snails, like I felt really happy, like those were my first real saltwater inhabitants, you know, like my first animals to care for. And it just felt like things were going in the right direction and things were going well. Unfortunately though that didn't last very long, because a couple days after that I was looking at the tank and I noticed that the Crypt prolifera, the big green type of macroalgae, was not looking very good. Some of the leaves had white dots on them and the bottom part of the leaves was turning white as well. So I decided to trim it and just leave the rhizome, hoping that it would grow back. But that didn't happen and it basically all melted. A couple days later I went to another shop and the guys there gave me some new macroalgae. But believe it or not, the exact same thing happened again. all the Caulepa died, which caused a big nutrient spike, which then led to a huge algae outbreak. Most of it was red cyanoalgae, so I bought an algae treatment and this cleared up within a few days. So after I did that treatment and got rid of all the algae, the tank actually started to look pretty good again. It kind of felt like I was ready for the next step and get my first saltwater fish. So I went back to Ocean and Lake, had a look at their nano fish selection and discussed with the guys there what would be a suitable option for this nano cube. Now because my tank had been up and running without fish for quite a while, I actually had loads of tiny critters crawling around, like copepods and amphipods, so lots of live food for any potential new inhabitants. And because of that, the guys at the shop suggested I go with a pair of red dragonhead gobies. So I brought them home, slowly acclimated them and added them to the tank. I absolutely love these little guys, they're so fun to watch and it's quite easy to see the difference between male and female. The male has a really big dorsal fin, which they can open up when they're trying to impress the female. And when it's closed, it kind of looks like they're carrying a samurai sword on their back. You might notice though that they are both pretty skinny, so we have a lot of work to do to get them in good shape again. So before I added the fish into this tank, I had loads of these tiny bugs crawling around, those amphipods and those copepods. So I thought that would be enough food for quite a while. Like of course I would feed them multiple times per day, but then in between they could hunt those pods, you know. But then like the day after I added those fish, I literally couldn't see a single critter anymore, like a single pod. And to this day I'm still not sure if they ate them all or they just started to hide in the rockwork, but yeah, getting live food for these guys was the next challenge. So if it's not moving, they don't want it. So forget about your dry flake or pellets or frozen food. These guys only want high quality, fresh food, preferably copepods. I've tried a few other things as well, like Meister shrimp, Artemia and tubifex worms. They seem to be okay with Artemia as well, but anything else they're just not really interested in. But yeah, getting enough food for these guys is definitely a challenge. So right now I'm in the process of setting up a copepod culture so I can always have them at home fresh and I don't have to like order it online or like make a trip to a store, you know. Yeah, that's basically everything that has happened in the past 100 days. It's been a really fun journey so far. I like that even with this relatively simple setup, it still seems to work just fine. And yeah, I feel like the aquarium is stable now. I don't really get a lot of algae anymore. I do still get some algae on the glass, so I'm kind of just playing with the light intensity, hoping I can minimize that. But yeah, I feel like the tank is running really well right now. Now I know it's definitely not the best looking Aquascape or the best looking microalgae tank, but that wasn't the goal either. The goal was to just dip my toes into the saltwater hobby, just kind of learn as I go and just have fun, you know. So the goal now is to just keep this tank going, keep growing the macroalgae, maybe add some different macroalgae if I can find it. I'm also thinking if I should add some corals in here, but just not sure on that. Maybe I'll just keep it just macroalgae. And of course I would also like to add in some more inhabitants, but I'm just not sure what else I can put in this small tank. So if you have some experience with saltwater, then drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you think is a good option. I think for now this is it, guys. That was the update on this saltwater macroalgae tank. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to smash that like button and I'll see you next time.